Hi, what's up? Continuing our 2017 retrospective series, we're taking a look at all the movies from 2017 that I watched. This isn't a best of list. This is just a complete list. It might be missing a few movies, but not that many. I'm not really that into movies. I wish I was. There's so many movies that I've heard about that I want to watch, or situations where I'll see like one thing by a director and then I really want to watch everything else they've done, but it's hard for me to like get myself to watch movies. You know, if I'm by myself, I want to be like working on YouTube videos or working on writing or something like that. Um, and it's all right for me to take like a 22-minute break to watch like an episode of something. But when I look at like the runtime of a movie and it's like 2 hours, and then I look at the clock and it's like for 2 hours, like 2 hours from now, am I really gonna be still just like watching this movie? And then I feel like, no, I gotta get back to work, and then I just don't watch anything. At any rate, so these are the movies I watched. This is the first one, and you'll see that the pattern is usually either it's an anime movie, and then I make time for it, or friends convince me to see it. So here, a bunch of my friends wanted to go see this, and I said sure, and I went along, and I liked it. I don't know, I haven't seen many musicals, but this was fun, and the cinematography was like really exciting. Like it was so obviously big budget that I was just kind of blown away. Even if like the particular aesthetic doesn't appeal to me too much, and like the whole kind of romantic genre never really did much for me. But I don't know, it was good. There was like no problems with it. I think the only scene that really like blew me away though was when they were in the planetarium and they start like walking through the sky, which I think is kind of the famous scene from it, right? That one like really impressed me. Whereas a lot of the other ones, I was like, okay, this is really good. But I was impressed with the ending too. The ending like didn't go in the direction I thought it would at all, so that surprised and impressed me. But the rest of it was mostly pretty predictable. Then I saw this. Again, some friends wanted to go see it, and I said, sure, that sounds like a good time. I really liked the original Lego movie. I was really, really impressed with that. I thought it was hilarious, and the image, like the graphics and stuff, were just mind-boggling. Like it looked so good. It looked so much like Lego. And here, the sense of humor was largely the same, and the graphics were, if anything, even better. So yeah, I was really impressed. Like I'm not very much into comic books, heroes or anything, cape shit. I don't know. I just don't care. The last superhero movie I saw was the Avengers. I saw it in IMAX 3D, and it actually made me throw up. There was a part where the camera goes like zooming around. I actually just got like really nauseous really fast, and I ran out to the bathroom and threw up. And since then, I just was like, you know what? I just give up. I don't care anymore. Um, but this is fun because it kind of like pokes fun at all of the things that I can't take seriously about comic book movies, and it never once asks you to take it seriously. But then at the end, you actually get pretty emotionally invested too. I found it's just like the characters are so lovable and so endearing, and the Will Arnett, um, Michael Cera combo coming back from Arrested Development alone just makes me super happy. And I was really excited too. I hope this isn't too big spoilers, but there's a part where there's like villains from all sorts of other Lego universes like crossing over, and that was a big appeal to me of like the Lego movie. I thought was just how much potential there was, and letting all of the Lego franchises like coexist and seeing like the bizarre juxtapositions of them. So I was like super excited to see more of that. And it gives me hope. Like I hope they keep doing big Lego franchise. Like I want like a Lego Lord of the Rings movie, Lego Harry Potter movie. I think it all could be like lots and lots of fun. So yeah, this was good. This might be like my favorite non-anime movie I saw this year. Maybe, I don't know. I forget what other movies are on this list. Oh, then I saw this. This is the Korean poster? Oh, okay. Well, I got the Korean poster for some reason. But this is Kizumonogatari 2. I thought it was great. It's just mostly fights. Fights and fan service. All of the fights were fantastic. There was like this kind of I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. The scene where Araragi is throwing baseballs at the guy. It felt like there was something being said about the Japanese spirit that really resonated with me somehow, even though I can't really articulate it, nor can I even like try to construct how it felt when it resonated with me. But I think with these movies, Shaft has been able to kind of go beyond like the literal story being told and present it as something more iconic, and has kind of elevated Araragi in these movies, I think, to, I don't know, like almost like a folk hero or something. Now I'm just kind of rambling. I have no idea, but it was good, man. This is some of the best Shaft animation I've seen. The fight scenes, as I said, were just like absurdly dynamic and kinetic and thrilling. Um, I don't know, like the first movie, lots of like exposition, a little slower paced character introductions and stuff. But but this one, the breaks are just like full off, just fight, 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 fight. Um, and of course, fan service. All right, what was next? Oh yeah, this was good. I guess this is a movie. I didn't see this in the theaters. I didn't see Kizu in the theaters either. But this was like movie length, so I'm gonna count it. This was presented to me by my friend, I think, in the best possible way, where he didn't tell me it was a joke. He said, "Do you want to watch a movie about drug scandals in the Tour de France?" And I was like, "No." But because it was so out of character for him to suggest we watch something like that, I was like, I sure. And then we watched it, and of course, it's actually just an absurd comedy making fun of the sort of scandals and stuff and presenting the most absurd bicycle race you've ever seen. I like that it's in the mockumentary format. I always think that's a lot of fun. And the fact that they kind of got to double dip on all of the characters by having both the like documentary footage, like Andy Samberg playing like the young version of his character, and then Jeff Goldblum, sorry I couldn't think of his name, playing like the older version. Like that in itself is just inherently funny, and then all the stuff with Lance Armstrong, which is just so absurd that he was actually in this. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think this was really, really like well done. I think this speaks to a great potential in kind of comedy movies, because I don't think this would have been theatrically sellable. It's so much about like just the initial joke and absurdity of it, which I guess I've kind of spoiled for you. Sorry. That I don't know. Like you couldn't have a big budget campaign advertising this without it kind of losing the spontaneity and the absurdity that makes it so funny. That it just like really exists. But since theatrical releases are less and less important, and just performing well on streaming services where like things like word of mouth and situations just like the one I had with my friend are so important, it feels like I keep saying the brakes have been taken off. The brakes have been taken off. These sort of high budget, high profile, triple A celebrity filled comedies can just be so much weirder. I think is the potential that we're seeing here. So that's great, because this is a weird movie, but I love it. Then I saw this Koe no Katachi. This is like Hibike as well, isn't it? Sound of shape, but uh, usually it's translated as a silent voice, but whatever. At any rate, it's pretty great. I hadn't read the manga, or I read the one shot, which takes place when they're kids, but I hadn't read the manga about their adult or their teenage lives. Um, it's a pretty tough story to get through. Lots and lots of really brutal scenes of bullying and like long, angsty kind of feeling down about yourself scenes, and it's uh, it's not kind of like fun, cheery KyoAni, even though like the direction and the character design and the animation and stuff are just so beautiful and vivid and cute and very much in kind of the KyoAni tradition. I mean, movie KyoAni. Oh my god, you're not gonna find more beautiful animation. Even though I just praised Shaft, movie Shaft, I think movie KyoAni still wins out. Um, I don't know. I think this is a very dislikable movie if you're the type to just kind of hold grudges against characters and not like kind of empathize with people doing unreasonable things and being mean. To me, I think this whole movie kind of revolves around the idea that people can be like really suffering, even though they're acting out, even though they're being assholes. Deep down, they're just suffering, and if you can pity that sort of miserable failure, I think this movie can be very, very emotionally powerful. And like I said, it's so hard to not just kind of get swept up in the animation and the directing and just all the little charms of the way they animate the characters and stuff that KyoAni is just so good at. That I think if you let yourself, this can be an extremely, extremely moving movie. I've heard from fans of the manga that they cut out a lot of stuff and it kind of suffers for that, which I can kind of believe. Like, you can kind of feel the episodicness come through in the movie with like major arcs and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, this does kind of feel like a manga. Um, so it's probably better suited in that format to begin with, anyways. So I'll probably read the manga at some point. But regardless, it's a nice story. I didn't explain at all what the plot was, but whatever. Just know that there's a lot of bullying. So if you're the type that kind of has traumatic experiences with bullying and gets see, I want to use the word triggered here, but triggered has been co-opted so brutally by idiots that it almost feels like inherently a joke when I try to use it now. But sincerely, I just watch out for that. I guess it could be a real bad time for you. This is Kizu 3. You can see more fighting, sword, and more boobs. Boobs. It's by far the most fan servicey one, actually, with the legendary Hanekawa scene. But another great one, another really emotionally powerful movie. Again, kind of feeling like it's tapping into some story, some more like primal feeling, but I don't know if I can really explain that in any sort of depth. Um, I don't know. It's like when you have a story like the Monogatari series, and then it's been going on for like a decade now, and then you go back and finally you're animating the origin story and stuff. There's kind of like this inherent iconicness and like legendary status that you have to live up to, and sometimes that can be kind of awkward. Like, I think this is something that people criticize the Star Wars prequels for being like they kind of just fumble the ball when they're set up this big emotional climactic scene. Ooh, it's time to find out how he becomes Darth Vader. So it's hard, but I think here they nailed it. Like, everything lives up to the magnitude that the later chapters imparted on it. And of course, the animation is gorgeous because it's Shaft, and yeah, yeah. I don't know. Is there something more I wanted to say? I don't think so. I'm gonna watch this Kimi no Nawa, Your Name, just the biggest anime blockbuster this side of Miyazaki. One that did really well in Western countries too, and I don't know. It's like watching this, I got the sense, I understood why it was so popular. It really has something for everybody. It's got kind of lighthearted comedic moments. It's got really kind of tragic, romantic moments. It's got kind of some angst, which is kind of all what I expected. It's even got like really nice urban stuff and then really like rural stuff. It's got some really, and then all of that I expected. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then this is what surprised me, and this is where it kind of clicked, and I'm like, oh, this is why it's so popular. That it also has big action sequences and explosions and trippy psychedelic sequences and stuff, and all of this, I was just like, holy crap! I thought this was just kind of like a romantic comedy. Ooh, we're switching bodies. How silly. But no, no, and there's many, many twists, and the plot goes like all over the place. So many different emotional tones. Um, and I wouldn't even say, and I guess this is my big criticism of the movie, is that I wouldn't even say that it's kept together emotionally and like tonally consistently through the movie itself. It's more just that everything is so gorgeous and so beautifully animated that whenever each like kind of crazy new development happens, your immediate thought isn't like, huh? Like, why is it doing this? Why are we going on this whole road trip or whatever? But it's more just like, oh, that's so nice. Like, I can't wait to see this or this. So you become very accepting of it. It's so I really do think it's a movie that everyone can like. And then, as with a lot of romantic stories, I think if it just hits you on that note of emotional resonance, then you can really love it. Because there's some like big devotees, like Titanic level devotees to this movie too. So I think in this level, in this way, they've nailed. This is like the James Cameron. Sorry, I almost said James Franco, but that's another movie. The James Cameron of anime. Um, give every single member of the audience something that they will like, and then go heavy on the romance so that 1 in 10 people is in tears by the end and just loves it to death. And it did a great job of that. But I was not the 1 in 10 people, The romantic story just didn't do too much for me, so that's fine. That's fine. Then I watched this, It. I was with some friends again, and my friend wanted to see it, and I said, sure. It was a lot of fun, going to see a horror movie, and we were like drinking beforehand, so that made it more fun too. I haven't seen many horror movies. The genre doesn't really interest me too much. I'm very squeamish around like really gory scenes, and like the idea of getting like legitimately scared, although it doesn't happen to me too often. I think if I ever did get legitimately scared, I would just like regret it. I'd just be like, well, now I can't sleep and I have work tomorrow, so that was a dumb idea. This was fun though. I really enjoyed it. It felt like really kind of classic horror in a lot of ways. Not that I really know too much about what that is, but I think a big part of it was because I knew the story vaguely, and I had been familiar with the character, and I knew the original existed. Um, like kind of matching it all up and seeing where kind of the references I had heard and stuff came from really kind of gave the whole movie a sense of kind of like iconicness. And because of that, when there was like the really sharp, tight writing and genuine like hilarious jokes and stuff from all the child actors who I thought were all like really fantastic, um, it felt like more shocking, I guess, because I had kind of gone into this thinking of it as like an institution, so that when it was like making me laugh, I was like, oh wow, like I can actually kind of connect with this in some ways. Yeah, I don't know. My big criticism, I guess, and this is like really just me being obnoxious, is that I realized like really early on that none of the kids were gonna die. That just kind of seemed like obvious to me. And maybe that's not the right attitude to go into a horror movie with, but it occurred to me that every time the clown shows up, and some of the ways that they introduce the clown are like really creepy. Don't get me wrong, especially the ones where the fat kid is like flipping through the book. It's like zooming in on that picture. I thought that was really good, and the one where they're looking at photos in the garage, like that kind of like dread. I kind of got freaked out. But as soon as the clown actually attacks, and it's like trying to kill them, it's just so bad at killing them, so ridiculously bad, that I just, it became kind of like absurd at first, and then also just kind of like boring. That the getting chased around by the clown sequences were like my least favorite part. Um, I just kind of wanted to get back to like the banter and the mystery and the dread of when the clown isn't on screen of, oh, in what form, from where is the clown going to emerge. I thought that was like way more interesting than all of the times where they were actually in quote unquote danger. Then I watched this. I watched this twice this year, and then I was in the room playing Melee when it was being watched a third time. And the only reason I didn't watch it that third time was because I had just seen it like 2 days prior. I love this movie. I guess this is another horror movie. And in some ways, it's a very conventional horror movie, especially kind of like the last act, which is my least favorite part. Because again, anytime that I start to feel like, uh, I don't know, I think it's mostly like a defense mechanism on my part, where I don't like the feeling of kind of being tense and worried about the characters. So I very quickly kind of come up with like a cynical, well, obviously, like so and so isn't going to die, and so is going to die, and blah blah blah, and then it all becomes very kind of route, I guess. Anyways, that's not the point though. The parts that are traditional horror aren't really the interesting part of this movie. What is really good about it, I think, is the mixture and juxtaposition of the really kind of creepy, unnerving parts, and then like the comedy. And the comedy is pitch perfect, of course, because it's. I hope his name would be on the poster. Now I'm gonna have to remember it, and I'm gonna sound like an idiot. Jordan Peele, is that his name? Jordan Peele from Key and Peele. Yeah, who wrote and directed it, and is just so expert at this point, so experienced with writing comedic dialogue that it doesn't feel like kind of awkward comedy moments shoehorned into a horror. Actually, it was good for that too. I don't know where I got the idea that that's what it would be, is awkward comedy shoehorned into horror. But it's more like really genuine comedy and like a really well done sense of friendship and camaraderie between the characters that when things start getting like freaky and scary, you actually get this sense of injustice that you actually like are mad on a visceral level that these great friends are being separated and messed with and stuff, you know? Like I was really impressed with that. That I wanted it to get back to the comedy. It's actually the thing it reminds me most of is the anime series Gakugarashi, which is like slice of life but with zombies, and how during the zombie parts you really feel this kind of like desperation, and you feel upset because you want them to go back to just fun slice of life shenanigans, because that's, excuse me, the sort of degenerate you are. um, yeah, I don't know, I think it really really captured that sort of tone, and that, you know, kind of before the horrific things start happening, that tone is so perfect for a scenario where you're being kind of dragged along to your girlfriend's parents' place and you don't really want to be there, and everyone feels kind of uncomfortable. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just tonally perfect. The cinematography is excellent. You know, a lot of the scenes of this kind of beautiful forested area are so good, but so like unnerving and isolated in the same way. It kind of reminds me of The Shining, which is high praise because that's definitely my favorite horror movie ever. Um, what else can I praise about it? Acting, fantastic. Especially the characters that kind of had to play more than one mode, but I don't want to explain that too much for spoilers. Yeah, my only flaw is there's one line near the end, and maybe people who have watched this movie will know what I'm talking about. But it was funny because like I watched this for the first time at a party, and I was like, wow, that was great. And I was like, oh, we were all like really into it, and that was great. And then I watched it again much later with my friends, and I was like, do you remember though that one line? And they were like, oh yeah, yeah, that one line. We all knew exactly what line like bothered all of us. That all of us in our heads were just like, oh, enough already. And then it became, because we had this like shared experience, it became like a joke. And now it's just become this like monstrously bad line, and it feels like this huge blemish right near the end of the movie. But no. It's all good. Highly recommended. I'm really curious to see where else he's going to go in his directorial career. Um, I feel like this is something where really easily he'll want to replicate the same sort of success and make another movie in this like comedy thriller genre. And I don't know, I think that would be great, but I feel like the real talent I saw here is like really general. Like just being able to frame really, really compelling shots, able to get really good performances out of people, the ability to write dialogue in tense situations and comedic situations and have both of them sound like pitch perfect and not make it feel like they're coming out of like two different books, that they're conflicting in any major way. And that sort of talent can be applied to any genre, any mode, any sort of project. So I hope he feels like the sky is the limit and then it's wide open and beautiful and Where am I going with this analogy? Anyways, I'm excited for his future career. Then I watched this. I think this is the last one. Yeah. This was good. This is the story of The Room, which, if you don't know, is the story of this guy, Mark, teaming up with Tommy Wiseau. Tommy Wiseau being one of the most mysterious men ever to rise to any sort of level of fame. As Tommy writes, produces, and directs perhaps the worst movie ever made, The Room. So I've had quite the history with The Room. I found out about it when I was in like grade school, and I watched it with some friends, or high school, I guess. Watched it with some friends. It's hilarious. And then in university, one of like kind of the early like bonding times I had with somebody who went on to be one of my best friends was us watching The Room in his dorm in first year, and I think it was really funny. His roommate walked in just to like say, "Hey, what's up?" during two sex scenes, and both times he just like looked at the TV. He's like, "What the hell is this?" We're like, "No, it's like funny. It's this really bad movie." He's like, and then he like comes back like maybe half an hour later. It's just like another sex scene with like the same woman but a different man. He's just like, what? Anyways, yeah. So I have a lot, and then I've seen it like off and on since then. I went to a screening of it in Toronto where Tommy Wiseau was actually there. I got my picture taken with him. He signed my copy of The Room. That was great. Seeing it in a theater with a live audience that does like all of the memes. Like it's become this whole like cult ritual that at certain points you throw like plastic spoons at the screen, and at certain points you throw footballs back and forth in the crowd, and you shout back to all these lines and stuff. It's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was great too. So then I read the book of this, being very curious about The Room and having this kind of history with it. And I found it like really, really compelling and really beautiful in a way to actually get the complete picture, and to kind of drag it down from this absurd, almost unreal place and ground it in this reality of like, okay, but really, Tommy is actually a living human being, and all of this stuff actually happened. They made this movie. Um, what the heck? How can you reconcile that with reality? So the movie, I thought, the Disaster Artist movie, which I was really looking forward to, I thought it was good, but it kind of undid that. It once again elevated the whole situation, and Tommy especially, to this inhuman mythic status. And it kind of made it feel inhuman again, and I don't know. So I think the biggest example is in the book. It's very clear that Mark decides to go along with Tommy with this room idea because he's getting paid. That Tommy is giving him a lot of money to act in it and to help direct it and all this stuff. And Mark knows that it's going to be a disaster, knows that it's a terrible idea, but is just so happy to be getting a steady paycheck after, struggling to make it as an actor, that he's like, all right, screw it, let's just do it. But in the movie, they cut that out entirely, and it's more that Mark wants to do it as some sort of like American dream. Tommy is his best friend. He somehow actually believes that this is all going to work out. And so that Mark almost becomes like inhuman. And Mark seems like a crazy person. And like big chunks of the movie just kind of don't make sense because of things that they've taken out of the book. Which is fine because at the end of the day, they're actually just trying to make this a movie, and it's just supposed to be like a nice comedy movie that happens to be about the room. So that's fine. But at the same time, there's like interviews at the start of the movie with comedy actors about the room and why the room has just become such a big cult hit. And so that it kind of seems like the movie that follows is reflective of the actual process of making the room. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? I don't know. It just sort of bugged me. And I don't want to seem unreasonable, and I don't want to say they should have put like every single detail that was in the book in the movie. but I felt like it was really missing a lot of the parts that made it sensible, like made it seem like something that could actually happen, but also made it really interesting, such that given that it actually happened, there are like a lot of details about it that once you learn, you're like, oh my gosh, like mostly on the side of actual production. Like in the book, Mark gets really down into the gritty details of how they did things and why they did things. And a lot of it is just hilarious and absurd and fascinating to really get insights onto how Tommy's mind works. Here's what I think they should have done. They should have made it like a mini series. They should have made it like a 1 season long, 12 episodes or something, and have alternating episodes, just like the structure of the book, of the story of Tommy and Mark meeting and going to Los Angeles together, and Mark kind of learning about Tommy and doing the acting classes together and stuff. And then alternate that with episodes focusing hyper detailed on the room's production and really getting into how each scene was made and all of the complications that came along. I think that would have been way, way better. Um, but I don't know. In the end, like they wanted to kind of like Hollywood it up a bit, and I guess there's something kind of beautiful about that. Then like Tommy all along wanted to make this like glamorous, wonderful Hollywood movie that would just charm the hearts of all of his audiences and make him into this Marlon Brando esque, James Dean esque, rugged, tragic hero or whatever. Um, and of course, it utterly failed to do that. But the Disaster Artist is almost like another attempt at that. That James Franco is this James Dean esque, Marlon Brando esque tragic hero through his portrayal of Tommy. And Dave Franco, I guess, to an extent, is too, with Mark. And I don't know. I don't know if it really succeeded super well in that regard, just because it's kind of a silly premise, all things considered. But I think there's something admirable about them going for that. So I guess I can understand it. I just think it would have been so much better, as I suggested, as like a mini series. Okay, those are all 10 movies that came out this year that I saw. So I guess you could also say it's a top 10 list. If I was doing a top 10 list, I think it would be like, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. Oh, maybe this is somewhere up there. This is number 4, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Um, I should try to watch more movies next year, or this year, but I probably won't. Okay, bye.